Since the very first dawn of humanity, fear has always been present. Dreams are sometimes replaced by nightmares, and phobias are common amongst people. This very primal instinct allowed us to evolve efficiently without ever going away. We all experienced fear, may be in different forms. But even the most traumatizing experience yields knowledge. Because we remember more vividly scary moments than happy ones, a lot of media take advantage of the shock value as a way to convey a message. We often see that in road safety ads, for example. It explicitly uses our fear of death combined into a graphical representation to make for a lasting memory. Video games often operate the same way. Their interactivity allows for some degree of immersion, but also unlocks new ways of using horror that aren't accessible to other media like cinema or literature. Just like analog horror can't exist in books due to its nature, games that mess with you can hardly exist in other types of media, as it would involve a personalized experience. It's like if you were watching a TV show and suddenly see yourself appear on the screen. But despite the very core of fear pushing us away from danger, we keep coming back to the source of our disturbance. Horror productions are created and consumed daily by a vast amount of the population. But why? Why do we yearn for fear? And how do video games use such a primal emotion to enhance our experience? Before answering those questions, we need to take a look at the origin and evolution of the horror genre. Across the globe and through the ages, all religions and folklore share a common recurring theme in their writings. Fearful and threatening figures often appear in mythology. Where there is light, darkness follows. A couple thousand years ago in ancient Egypt, fear and evil took several forms like Seth, the embodiment of evil, Amut, the devourer of souls, and Apophis, personification of darkness and chaos, to name a few. Their depiction allows us to take a peek at how horror was imagined back then. While not defined as such, these various deities and the myth that follows them all have this frightening energy that could be considered the precursor of horror codes we know today. In the myth of Apophis, the sun god Ra must defeat the dreadful lord of chaos in order to bring the sun upon the earth the next day. Each night, Ra enters the underworld on a barge accompanied by other deities and is met with resistance. If the gods fail to defeat the snake Apophis, it's said that the world will be plunged into darkness forever. He's defeated every night, but still comes back the next one. The cosmic threat he poses paved the way for eldritch horror to take inspiration from. But while other deities can pose such a threat in various mythologies, most of them only interact on a human scale. Obalulaye is an Orisha with many names, a god of the Yoruba religion. It's said that if you speak ill of him or mention his real name, he could summon smallpox and other diseases upon the population. It's a much closer, day-to-day life fear than what we saw with the Apophis mythos. Spirits and paranormal events are also referenced pretty early in mankind's history. In China, a book from the 1st century after Jesus Christ named Shongxiyun mentioned that a yokai lives at the imperial court since long. Known as yokai in the Japanese folklore, these phenomena that surpasses human understanding were often described as malicious or evil back then. As we saw with these few examples, the horror genre mostly takes its origin from various folklore and religions. Throughout the centuries, its core were more defined, and horror elements started to appear more frequently in literature. It was, however, only around the 19th century that horror literature took its more modern form, with various works like Dracula, Hansel and Gretel, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and many more. The Gothic fiction focused on previously popular themes, with a modern approach to the writing and how horror is conveyed. The 20th century expanded on that even more, with a proliferation of new horror writers. Many subgenres started to appear, with some productions focusing more on specific horror aspects. Howard Phillips Lovecraft, for example, revolutionized horror fiction by stepping away from the classic horror involving gore and shock stories to introduce us to the vast cosmos and its dangers, with the Cthulhu mythos. In the same century, but with a complete different direction, Stephen King also innovated on the horror codes. While his work generally revolves around classic themes like paranormal events, his storytelling offers a more psychological way to convey fear. The 20th century not only saw the expansion of horror literature, but also the popularization of horror movies. Becoming a codified genre in the 30s, with the release of Dracula movie, it quickly rose to be a popular genre, thanks to adaptations like Frankenstein or The Mummy. In contrast to literature, movies contain many more tools to put the viewer in a disturbing setting. In addition to a nicely written story, sounds and visuals now enhance our experience to immerse us in these creepy atmospheres. These tools have been used efficiently and expanded upon up until our present time, where they carved the path for new horror subgenres, such as analog horror for example, playing much on cryptic things and unsettling visuals rather than traditional psychological or gore horror. All this horror fiction history showed us how diversified the genre became, thanks to the new tools incorporated over time. Video games obviously took these codes and expanded on them even more very early in the gaming industry. In the 80s, various productions started to emerge like Haunted House for the Atari or the text-based game Mystery House. But it wasn't until a decade later that the genre would be popularized, thanks to the technological progress made in that time, with Alone in the Dark, shortly followed by nothing more than Resident Evil. As time passes, video games graphics and stories evolved, taking inspiration from other media such as horror literatures and movies. By the next century, almost everyone was now equipped with a personal computer, phone or console of any kind. Video games were more accessible than ever thanks to the internet, which helped the horror genre bloom during the indie game peak in the 2010s. In our quest for disturbing emotions, one of the first things our mind pays attention to is sound. Sound may indicate a danger, its distance, and can sometimes be a good omen. It dictates the atmosphere and adds to the immersion. Games like the Five Nights at Freddy's series heavily rely on its sound design to enhance the gameplay, whether it's loud upfront or almost indiscernible. One thing horror games developers loved during the 2010s was the jump scares, unexpected visuals with obnoxiously loud noise to briefly startle the player. It plays on the imminent panic to what is perceived as a threat by the brain, a momentary rush of crude fear. But the more you experience these screamers, the more you're used to it and the less effective they are over time, so that's not what we're gonna focus on here. In the fourth installment of the FNAF franchise, the gameplay was designed almost entirely around the different sounds you can hear. While audio was a core part of previous games, it is now mandatory to progress and finish it. It seems pretty easy on paper. To win, you have to survive through different nights against these nightmarish animatronics. You have 2 doors and a closet in front of you, all of which you can run to and close. And you also have the possibility to turn around and see your bed. Your only equipment is a flashlight that can be activated to see the doorways. Each animatronic's position can be tracked through the sound they make, and for them not to be able to get you, you need to close either the doors or the closet when you hear something. No camera, no mask, just 3 controls and the looming darkness all around this childish bedroom. To add to the ambient background sound, many casual sounds can be heard throughout the night. A dog barking, a clock ticking, soft crickets singing at the moon. While almost forgettable in a real-life setting, they can become oppressive as you're focusing on audio cues. Everything appears much louder than it should, adding to the pressure of staying alive. These sounds are also reminiscent of a certain childhood, as you commonly hear this while staying at a grandparent's house at a young age, for example. As the bedroom shows, we are playing a child in this game. It brings the player a contradictory feeling. It plays on the nostalgia of younger days, while presenting it in a setting where it appears at a potential rampant threat. It only echoes another very important part of the gameplay. You're effectively helpless against all of that. As the night progresses, you slowly realize that the only meaningful action you can do is close doors. You can't directly fight the animatronics. The only option you have is hide in that tiny colorful room. As your heartbeat rises, the more you hear footsteps and loud breath near the doors. You immerse yourself in a long-forgotten nightmare you might have had as a kid. Back in a childlike setting, with incredible sound design, the Little Nightmare series is a prime example of fantastic horror games. From the beginning, you're met with a weird and disproportionate world. You wander in the depth of these inhospitable places, with only a light to help you on your journey. Contrary to the previous games we've talked about, you're unlikely to encounter traditional jump scares. Instead, the horror elements are mostly composed of visuals accompanying the atmosphere. In the first game, you can find what looks like a children's playground. As you push a lever down, the lights go off and a ticking sound can be heard. Crossing the barrier to the room, you feel a certain rush to reach the opposite side as quickly as possible as the ticking fastens. Something might catch you at any time in this darkness. But in reality, no threat is here for you. You could stay as long as you want. After a few seconds, the ticking stops and faints, and a single light source now allows us to explore the room. An automated train toy is present, moving and fully working. It reinforces the fact that something or someone should be here, and play with the player's perception. It installs a certain paranoia, a looming shadow that your eyes can't catch. This early in the game, no enemies have been introduced, but it already starts to build up tension without even a threat present. Similarly, near the end of the first game, you need to sneak behind the lady, the last boss singing slowly as your character's heartbeat echoes in the back. The anxiety and stress adds up to where you need to break apart to obtain a key. You hurry to hide beneath the bed, as all sounds stopped when the vase broke. But she never comes. After a short while, the background music slowly comes back. The uneasiness comes from the expectation of an immediate threat that is not met. You expect the lady coming after you after such a sound, as the janitor will in the first act, for example. But the game messes with your senses. As a video game enjoyer, you're likely to know how to follow visual cues to help you avoid danger. In the second installment, you learn earlier that stepping on a plank slightly raised triggers a trap. Logically, the next time you encounter a similar setup, you avoid said plank by jumping, and that's where the game breaks again this false sense of security. You think you know how the game operates and can deceive its mechanics, but it always surprises you by acting differently. It puts you in a confusion, not knowing what to do next, and causing you to doubt every action. It slowly gets into your head, as you get more and more disoriented in this linear game. Another very effective element of this series is its character design, and how the enemies are introduced. For each of the horrible creatures the game throws at you, you need to sneak behind them. It allows you to take a peek at their monstrosity, their habits, sounds and theme. They are visually atrocious and very distinct, and have interesting mechanics that diversifies the gameplay. Combined to the already oppressing atmosphere, it makes for a cocktail of uneasy emotions. It drowns the player into the sheer fear and helplessness that the character feels while trying to survive. In the chase sequences, for example, the visual horror combined to the stressful music puts the player in a profound discomfort. The heavy breathing, heartbeats, and swift sound of feet running are all identifiable by the brain as panic, fear in its more raw form. The uncanny body horror doesn't break this immersion, as it feels natural for this world to have such elements in it, since the world itself is deformed and looks illogical. From the adrenaline rush you feel while being chased, to the pressure of the heavy atmosphere in these desolate-looking places, I think it's safe to say that the Little Nightmares series does well at conveying a disturbing but appreciable experience. But what if instead of just experiencing horror through a character's journey, it also directly impacted you? While we saw pretty classic types of horror until now, we still haven't touched on the games that provide a personalized setting. One of my favorite types of horror games are the ones that integrate the player into the experience. Inscryption is not a horror game per se, but it does contain some interesting horror elements. In Act 3, you are forced to play a card game by this not very gentleman robot head named P03. You go around a holographic map, fighting enemies and bosses. One of these bosses is named the Archivists, and has an interesting mechanic to say the least. Upon arriving at his doors, he asks us to agree to and sign the contract, then introduces himself in a pretty weird manner.
I eagerly await the opportunity to explore your hard drive. Files and directories are my specialty, you see.
The game starts and plays normally, until you defeat one of his cards, which holds a file sigil. When doing so, he politely asks you to grant him access to your hard drive, but it seems like it's something you can't refuse anyway. If you try to click no, the yes button will automatically move in its place, leaving you with no options but to accept this odd inquiry. After accepting, the archivist requests a sizable file to choose from and opens a window named My Computer. Hold on, wait, it's one of my actual hard drive. It gives the sense that the game is breaching into real life. It's taking shape and form outside of its defined universe. You're used to being the one in control of the video game. You control the characters, some decision, and so on, but your choices tend to stay within the scope of the game. But the madness doesn't end here. After selecting a few files, the last one he requests is one of old age, which turns into a playable card.
You didn't choose a file that was too dear, did you? For if the card dies, I will delete the file from your disk. Please, do not tempt me. I am completely serious.
The game is not only reaching our world, it's also taking control of it. The fear the player feels doesn't come from the story it follows, it comes from the real-life threat it now poses, as it can affect them directly now. Luckily, if you play your card and it dies, your file won't really be deleted. All you find in its directory is a .txt file by P03 asking you to delete it yourself as you can't. This mechanic was however really present at some point in the beta phase of Inscryption, but the shocked beta testers quickly alerted the developers. And good thing they got rid of it, because scrolling through Reddit shows a bunch of people selecting boot files, system files, and so on. During my first playthrough, I actually played on Switch, which as you may know doesn't act like a computer. For this fight precisely, they had to create a false hard drive belonging to the player we follow while playing. It's complicated, but go play the game. It sadly doesn't break the fourth wall as it should, but luckily one of the last boss fights catches up on that. While not being as impactful as the archivist's mechanic, the goalie fight still plays on the anxiety the player has experienced earlier. On her first turn, she seems to receive some kind of signal, and pulls out the player's friends as enemy cards.
Are these your friends?
Do you enjoy these videos so far?
Yay!
Great! Please consider subscribing then.
We talked about sounds, visuals, and we touched briefly on the psychological side. So let's dive a bit deeper into the madness by combining all of them. Oh hey, that looks cute. Oh come on. Disguised as an adorable dating simulator, Doki Litterature Club, DDLC for short, was a breath of fresh air in the horror scene when it got out. This visual novel starts in the most innocent and cliché way possible, and gradually deteriorates as the story progresses. The first act has you getting to know the characters, their lives, and their relationship with one another. You slowly learn each girl's traits, quirks, and writing style, and get attached to them after hours of playing normally. At some point, your childhood friend Sayuri confesses her love to you in a big, emotional, and somewhat confusing scene. You can choose to friendzone her or confess too. The next day, you arrive at the Literature Club to prepare the school's festival day, but only find one of the 3 other club members, the president of the club, Monika. As you two talk, your character slowly realizes that Sayuri, the girl from before, isn't here.
You kind of left her hanging this morning, you know?
The conversation goes on, and you decide to read her last poem. Or you suddenly rush to her house, and as minutes and text passes by, the screen goes black. After hours of gameplay, you're finally struck with the first horror elements, against the backdrop of soft, broken music box. The screen goes black again after a while. As the player and the character try to make sense of what happened, the end screen rolls and the game cuts back to the main menu, which seems to have glitched out where Sayuri is supposed to be. If you launch a new game, you're met with whatever this is. After a quick rollback, it seems the script itself has changed. In your first playthrough, you go to school every morning by Sayuri's side. Now you go alone. She isn't just dead, she's literally gone. She was erased from the game itself. If you go to check the game's file to confirm in a moment of doubt, she's really gone, nowhere to be seen. When a character dies in a video game, there's always a way to bring them back, through starting a new save for example. But this is not the case here, which disturbs the player, as it's unexpected for a game to behave like this. The game continues kinda normally, as you progress through the story and get closer with the girl of your choice again. You're however met with disturbing imagery scattered around your glitchy gameplay. Everything and everyone gets more unhinged and seems to break even further as those lines of dialogue pass. Natsuki's face, for example, sometimes changes appearance, having this super realistic mouth and glitchy eyes, or no face at all. Monika, on the other hand, has a habit to show hers over pretty much everything. The text bubble, people, and the entire screen, because why not? She stares at you, directly into your soul, with her eyes directed towards you, contrary to the other girls, who are slightly turned. The game slowly breaks apart, and the girls all seem to descend into madness, with the climax happening when Yuri confesses her love to you, in the most fucked up manner possible. Day passes by as you see her body decay in front of you, with an endless glitchy text that takes eons to skip. You've spent hours getting to know these characters, just for them to go completely nuts. The game takes every landmark you may have and turns it against you.
Oh, well, that's a shame. I didn't realize the script was broken that badly. Just give me a sec.
Monika proceeds to just delete everyone following that event. The mystery of the removal of Syrie unfolds as the game reboots on a glitched loading screen. Momika's face appears before us once again. She is aware of being a character in a video game. She has some power of your computer as well, since she deletes files and changes the game's script whenever she pleases. It gives this sense of breaching reality again.
I'm talking to you, Empress. Or do you actually go by Delta or something?
This simple sentence made the internet go crazy in 2018. If you put something other than your actual name at the beginning of the game, the characters will reference you by what you have chosen. Monika doesn't. She knows and uses your real name. She doesn't only mess with your files, she also knows who you are. Well, that is only if your computer's name is your actual name. A simple trick really, but extremely effective at its time. Fourth wall breaking is something to be cautious about. It can ruin the immersion by being too meta or not well prepared. But I believe the way DDLC did it is genius. It keeps you constantly on edge with disturbing visuals and music. It confuses you with the way the story and the character go, to finally get directed to you through your computer and files. It's unexpected, scary, and kinda hard, not gonna lie. To finish the game, you need to go to the game's directory and delete Monika's character file. You need to fight her on her own territory, which is your own personal space. All reality and the games has become almost intertwined, and their boundaries are blurry. It positions you, the player, in utter discomfort and confusion. This is brilliant gameplay and a very efficient way to convey fear. The last game we're going to talk about today is adorable again? Let me introduce you to the great needy streamer Overload. This game is sort of a social experiment, with 22 endings to discover and a good way to get traumatized. Meet Ame, a very disturbed girl who wants to get into streaming to pay her rent. She asks you to manage her social media and life to get her to a goal. All the actions you make her perform act on the different stats present at the top right corner. I'm not gonna get into all the details here because this is a pretty complete game, but I'd like to show one of the endings. It's the longest of them all, called Internet Overdose. During a playthrough to obtain this ending, you have to perform quite a lot of fucked up actions like I told you she was disturbed. She also gets pretty high multiple times when streaming, which got her a lot of hate that she can't manage. It culminates in a complete breakdown on stream, where she cries and pukes due to the pressure. The pacing of the game strangely gets swifter as you check social media and discover Ame's been doxed. That sight makes her break down once again, as the screen itself glitches. A second later, everything seems to be back to normal, but shortly she takes us into her mental madness. Pops up all over the screen show red eyes staring at you menacingly. Messages of hate and disdain are shown across all these tabs. Closing them all reveals another charming one. Would you like to die or die? As OK is the only option. You click it and tens of pill tabs open, indicating that Ame is consuming all of them. As a new stream launches, the audio gets distorted and eyes appear all over the screen again, but you can't make them go away this time. The stream, subtly called Die, has her having another mental breakdown. At the end of said stream, the word Die appears again everywhere on the screen. The next day, Amy mentions she hears her doorbell over and over. As she's been doxxed, someone might be at her front door right now. It could also be an hallucination due to the amount of drugs she took. We try to comfort her as she slowly loses sense of reality before our very eyes. As the music gets more and more distorted, the conversation that follows is even more confusing. Nothing makes sense anymore. As a new stream launches in complete distortion, blood can be seen in her background. She also talks about pets and the guppy she used to have like nothing ever happened. The stream suddenly cuts as a poem appears on screen. The screen gets distorted again, and the next and final layer starts. Everything glitches out while we try to make sense of the conversation we're having with Ame, who lost her last connection to reality. After last message, it suddenly cuts to a hallucinatory livestream. All this time, we followed the death of the self. I chose this ending in particular for its scarily accurate representation of mental breakdowns and paranoia. You see every component of a personality being dismantled and experience a part of it through visuals and sound. It brings paranoia and psychosis to the player too, with the doorbell for example. Even though we tell her there's no one, we can hear it as well. The way she reacts about negativity towards her feels genuine and can make the player identify her more easily. It is a particularly disturbing experience, even though you already expect something weird with that game, with endings like Dark Angel, when she have a million followers, so she... It's a psychological mess, a confusing and gruesome experience that impacted quite a lot of people. With all we saw, I still haven't answered a very important question. Why do we keep coming back to horror media? I used a lot of pejorative words in this video to describe the feelings experienced. However, I enjoy said feelings. Getting disturbed, horrified or spooked out is not appreciable in a situation not suited for it. For example, hearing a scary sound in the middle of the night. But in video games, the horror stays in a confined environment. It's a safe way to feel emotions you might not be too familiar with. The enjoyment comes from how this horror is perceived. A well-placed jump scare will startle you, so you learn how to avoid it. You get better at the game's mechanic and can enjoy the gameplay thanks to the horror elements present that you adapt to. You overcome this fear in a way. It gives satisfaction towards completion and transforms the bad spooky feeling into a nice rush of dopamine and adrenaline. There are many ways to appreciate horror games, from the psychological ones to the visually horrifying. They all convey fear through different forms, which can be combined together for a more appreciable experience. There are quite a lot of games I haven't mentioned worth noting, like Outlast or Mouthwashing for example. But this video is already long and I'm very lazy. Also, I didn't like Mouthwashing, I'm sorry. Anyway, I hope you liked this video, and if you have anything to add, feel free to leave a comment down below. That was Delta for Wormhole. Stay tuned!